Well, hello there everyone, my name is Amy, this is The Opinionated Woman, and welcome to Crafty Reads, the series where I craft something and we talk about the last 5 books that I've read. It has been a week. If you saw my last video, you saw me working on this panel, and you can see that it's a dramatically different size. The other night, after I'd dunked coffee on my laptop, I decided to compare this to the front panel, which I don't know why I hadn't done before because I thought they were the same size, and it was probably out by like this much, so I had to frog the whole fucking thing and start again. And it's been 2 days and my laptop still won't turn on. I've heard online you're supposed to wait like maybe 4 days, so it's drying and I'm bummed about it. So I'm going to film this to distract myself, so let's get into the books. The first book I read was The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. This is the sequel to The Maid by Nita Prose, which was like a little cozy mystery about a maid called Molly who works in a hotel, and she gets embroiled in a murder and she has to help to solve the mystery. So in this, she is still working at the same place. We've got like our known cast of characters that we got to know in the first book, and in this one it's the mystery starts off with this famous author that has come to the hotel to do a talk, and as he's about to start his talk he falls down and dies, and yet again Molly is involved in helping to solve this murder. Alongside that, we find out that Molly has a connection to this author from when she was a child, so we get a lot of flashback scenes of her being brought up by her grandmother, and her grandmother being the maid to this author in his mansion. And we get a lot of like behind the scenes of like Molly's upbringing and her character and everything like that, and it gives you like a lot of insight into her mother and things that we didn't really get in the first book. So I liked getting that kind of insight into the character. I've seen a lot of people say that they don't like the way that this is kind of like Molly is, hang on, my golden retriever is outside and wants to come in. There's 3 dogs in my house right now, oh my god. So yeah, Molly is very autistic coded, and I find that she's quite endearing. I'm also autistic, but I can see why some people wouldn't like the way she was written. Hello, my girl. But I think a lot of the tone of this has to do with the way the audiobook narrator reads it, and I feel like I would enjoy the tone a little bit more if I'd read it physically. But overall, this is a fun little, very low stakes, cozy mystery series that was quite a nice read. Then I read Small Pleasures by Clare Chambers. This one was freaking great. It's a historical fiction. It's set in 1957. Yes. And we're following our main character, Jean. And what I really appreciated is Jean is like in her late 30s, like just about to turn 40. And so many books that I read are set around 20 somethings, and as someone who's in her mid 30s, like sometimes it's hard to relate if every single book I'm reading is from someone who's in that age bracket. So this was definitely a breath of fresh air. So Jean works for this little newspaper in Kent. She lives with her mother. Her mother's quite frail, doesn't like to go out a lot, so her life is very limited outside of work. And one day this newspaper gets a letter in response to one of their other articles, and in this letter this woman called Gretchen is claiming that she has had a virgin birth, like a birth without having any interactions with a man whatsoever. And obviously people are very skeptical about this, and Jean is assigned the task to go and write an article about this woman and to figure out whether she's telling the truth or not. And she very much gets embroiled in the Tilbury family. Gretchen Tilbury is the woman who's making this claim, her daughter Margaret, and then is her husband called Howard or Harold? one of those. And she very much gets embroiled in this family while she's taking them to go do these different tests with these doctors to try and figure out if what she's saying is true, and while she investigates into Gretchen's past. And I really loved the way it was written. Like, I really felt like we got to see a lot of Jean's character, and she was just a wonderful protagonist to read from. I also liked that there was a little bit of a romance in here, but the man wasn't like this dashing, beautiful, like sexy man that she falls in love with right away. He's kind of like balding and old and graying, and he's just like, she just falls in love with him. It's got nothing to do with like the Hollywood good looks, which is another thing that I get kind of annoyed by in some other books, is that all the people are described in a very similar manner. And the love interests are always dashing, handsome men, and in real life that's not always how it works out. So that was a breath of fresh air, and I really liked Clare Chambers' writing. I definitely want to get into her backlist. Then I read Not Exactly What I Had in Mind by Kate Brook. This was an audiobook my mom recommended to me, and at the beginning of recommending this to me, my mom said that this book covers a lot of topics without getting in depth into any of them, and I would agree. Like, this was a really pleasant, like, easy read, and I really enjoyed the characters, but at the same time it did cover, like, it covers two roommates sleeping together and trying to navigate their feelings. It speaks about two lesbians trying to have a baby, and using a known donor. It covers revenge porn. It covers friendship dynamics. There's like a lot of different aspects that it sort of covers that I wish they kind of got a little more in depth about. Like, I feel like if they'd chosen specific ones to really delve into, I think it would have been nice. So just to give you an overview, this story is following Hazel and Alfie. Hazel and Alfie are roommates, and they've just recently slept together, and they're really trying to navigate their feelings without stuffing up this whole living situation that they have, but also while not communicating well in the slightest. And that's usually one of the, like, a bad side for me that I really don't enjoy. But this, I feel like it didn't grate on me as much as I thought it was going to. We also get involved in their relationship. We also get Hazel's sister, Emily, and her wife, Daria, who come to stay with them for a little bit, and they get to know Alfie quite well. They are queer, and they are trying to have a baby, and they're trying to find a known donor from the men in their lives that they think would be a good person to bring into their child's life as a donor, as like an uncle sort of situation. We also get Hazel dating an absolutely awful man, and that causing a bunch of issues within her different interpersonal relationships. And like I said, all of these characters are very likable characters. They're very well flushed out. Like, there's a lot of depth to each character, so you really do get invested. But like, if this was a series and delved into some of the topics a little bit deeper, I think I would have liked it even more. But even so, I would definitely like to read from this author again, because I really like the way she sculpts a character. Then I read The Lessons by Naomi Alderman, and this is a gay dark academia set in Oxford. We're following our main character, James, who at the beginning of the story has just started off at Oxford in his first year, and he goes for a run and he slips on some ice and he fucks up his knee. Like, he really messes up his knee, which puts him really behind. So academically he's not doing so well, and he's also not doing so well socially until he meets this woman called Jess, and she invites him to a party at this like manor house in Oxford that's owned by Mark Winters. And he's very much a trust fund baby. This house has been given to him by his father, and he just has raucous parties there with lots of sex and lots of drug use and things like that. So, and he hardly ever seems to do any actual work. So, James is sort of thrown into this whole friend group, and Mark asks a couple of the members of the friend group if they would like to move into the house instead of living on campus. So they create this really like insular friend group away from campus life, for better or for worse. And Mark is a very unpredictable guy. He's gay, and he's gotten done for cottaging a couple of times. And even as James develops this relationship with Jess, there is this tension with Mark that sort of develops over the years. And this book travels outside of just their experience at Oxford. Like, I'd say about half of the book is set in Oxford, and then half of the book is them out after they've graduated. They've all gone their separate ways. They've gone and found jobs. You know, some of them are starting families, things like that. And but somehow James manages to get even more embroiled in Mark as Mark's life gets messier and messier, when it comes to sex with different men, when it comes to substance issues, things like that. And the thing about James that really stuck out to me is that he really doesn't know who he is as a person outside of the people that are around him. He really takes his identity from the people that he involves himself with, and doesn't really seem to have the self-esteem or confidence to establish himself in what he wants without the influence of Jess or Mark or his parents or his sister, or like it's all based on other people, and there's not really a very strong sense of self, which is something that really develops throughout the novel. And I enjoyed myself. I like a dark academia. I like a story about messy rich assholes sometimes, you know, it like gives that Secret History vibe. And it's the first time I've ever tried her work. I know I'm not really interested in reading The Power by her, but I am interested in Disobedience. And I did like the way that this was written, so I think I'm going to give that one a go. And then lastly, I read Spilt Milk by Kopano Matlwa. I loved Coconut by Kopano Matlwa. I think I read it last year. Was it the last year or the year before? But whichever year I read it, it was on my best books of the year. But unfortunately, Spilt Milk for me just wasn't as successful. We're following Mahumachadi, who is the principal of a black, like kind of prestigious school that is set up after apartheid. And she, right at the beginning of the story, 4 children get into trouble for exposing their genitalia to each other in the back of a bus. And no one really talks to the children about why they've done this or anything like that. They get 6 weeks of detention, and for some reason they decide that they need to bring in a priest called Father Bill to come and sort of like run these detentions. But it's never really explained. No, you were already asked to go out, and then I let you out, and then you asked to come back in, and I let you back in. I'm not letting you back out again until I'm done filming. Yes. So I'm not, the thing with this book is that I felt like there were a lot of things that were brought up and that were implied, but they were never delved into. And this book was like just under 200 pages. So if it was longer, it could definitely have explored a lot of those aspects. And I don't know whether I was just missing something, and if it was like one of those settings where I was reading this for like a class or something, and then we went in and analyzed the themes, maybe I would get a little bit more from it. But just from an average reader's point of view, I just don't feel like things were flushed out. So like from the beginning, we know that Mahumachadi and Father Bill had a history from when they were younger, from 15 years before. And I was thinking, okay, cool, by the end of this book, we're going to find out what this history was. And we never find out. We never get the details of why there's this tension between them and what the relationship was between these two characters. We also get a couple of weird instances and interactions that happen between Father Bill and the children that are also like they just happen and they're never explored, they're never expanded upon, which kind of bugged me. Like I was just like expecting so much more to come from it and so much more depth to come from these characters because of these events that happened, and I just didn't get that, and I found it very unsatisfying, which was disappointing. So yeah, that is how I felt about Spilt Milk. I will keep hold of this book because I do like Kopano Matlwa's writing, because like the writing is really great, but I just felt like the stories were not expounded in the way that I wanted them to be. And those are all 5 books that I've read recently. She's chasing her tail now. Leela, she's rubbing her ears on the carpet. Anyway, I've gotten this far on my new panel. This jumper will finally come to fruition at some point. Luckily, there's no time frame on me making a jumper for myself. I know I'm going to only get to wear this next winter, so it's fine. If you want any more from me, my Instagram and my TikTok are down below, along with my one-time coffee link, which is like my coffee link, which is a one-time tip jar if you ever want to support my channel. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff, and I'll check you next time.